Hello, hope you're well. I'm jumping on just to talk to you a little bit about using AI. Now, I know it's a controversial subject. Should you, shouldn't you? Especially for something like the Camino, an incredibly spiritual journey, and you're going to use AI for it? Seriously. But I'm not going to get into that debate. Use AI, don't use AI. It's absolutely fine. I'm just sticking it out there as something that you might want to have a look at. The main reason really is to save time and to get information easily. So what I tend to find is there's a lot of different sources of information, and trying to pull those together, figure out which ones are the best ones, it can be a little bit difficult. Also, when you're doing something like route planning, trying to figure out all of your stages, especially if you're doing something like the Française, where you're actually going to be away for 4 or 5 weeks and you kind of want to figure out which places you're going to stop at. There's recommended stages, which are fantastic, but they might not necessarily work for you. So, it's just another thing to look at as part of the planning process that might give you some information that can help you. So let's jump in and let me see if I can share my screen here and we can jump into doing some AI. Go away, share screen. It keeps jumping around. There we go. So let's have a look. I'm going to share this screen here and let's see if we can make this happen. So various different types of AI. One that I use is called Claude. And often people talk about using different types of AI. So you wouldn't necessarily run this just through one AI platform. You could run it through a couple and compare the results. The thing with AI is it's not guaranteed the results. It does make things up sometimes. It does look at lots of sources and you don't necessarily know where those sources are from. So anything that you do in AI, you do need to check. It's just, like I say, a way to maybe get started or find some kind of general information. So one of the ones I've used it for is for route planning. So within my book, there is an AI prompt. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to give some instructions to AI, to Claude. So we're going to tell it what we would like to do. And let me just copy this and hopefully we can paste it into there. So what we're going to start with is, please plan me an itinerary for a trip walking on the Camino Francés official route from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. Start with information about public transport from Sheffield in the UK to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port on Saturday the 19th of April. So we're getting quite specific here. We're telling it exactly when we're going. We're also saying that we want to know how to get there as well. And beginning walking the following day. The itinerary needs to be split as evenly as possible in terms of distance, based on towns or villages where I can stay with albergues, based on walking approximately 25 kilometres a day. So this information you can change to fit to you, which Camino you're doing, where you're going from, where you're going to, where you need public transport from, that kind of thing. If you want to leave that, put that in. Also in terms of the distance, so you could change that to 20 kilometres a day. And I've put no more than 28 kilometres as well. So I'm giving it a kind of average, and then actually I don't want to do any more than 28. So I'm telling it quite specifically what I want to do. And I'm also saying that I want to stay in albergues. So that's something that I've said. And I expand on that here. So I would like to stay in donativo albergues wherever possible. Then I've asked it what I would like to know. So I want it to tell me the distance to walk that day, the altitude difference each day, because that's really, really crucial, trying to figure that out. And in some of the apps, they don't necessarily tell you that. They tell you may tell you how difficult it is, what the sort of the landscape's like, that kind of thing. But they don't necessarily tell you what the altitude differential is every day. So that can be quite useful information. And what possible options there are for staying the night, including the amenities they have have. So what have they got there? You know, have they got a kitchen, all that sort of stuff? What amenities have they got? How much is it? So the price and the contact details. Because if I've got a phone number or something like that, then I can, you know, I've got all the information in one place. I've also said, say if the town or village has a shop and or bar. So that can then inform me whether I need to bring food along, whether I need to buy it at a supermarket, if the town has a supermarket. If not, maybe I need to buy it when I'm on the route. So starting to gather a bit more information about when I'm actually on the route. So as I say, that is in my book and you can copy and paste that. But basically give the platform as much information as you can. You know, you might want to say, you know, I want to stay in hotels. You might want to say, I only want to be in, you know, single rooms every night, that kind of thing. So as much information as you can give it to give it the best results. And then we basically hit the go button and we wait and see the magic happen. Now, I love sitting, looking at Gronze, planning my trip. I did it last night actually for my next Camino, which is the Lebaniego and Vadiniense. And I sat there and looked at the stages, looked at which have got albergues, things like that. And it took me probably about an hour and a half to get a first kind of grasp of that. I didn't try it in here because for me, part of that is the love. I love the planning part of it. So I didn't choose to use AI for that part, but I could have. And as I say, it's just an option for you. So let's see what we've had returned here. So Camino France's itinerary. So first of all, it's telling you what it's going to do. So I'll plan your journey with that distance and some of the parameters we've given it. It's then giving us a few options. So getting to Saint-Jean from Sheffield and the date. So we've got a train, Eurostar, then we've got another train, and then we've got a regional train. So 10 to 12 hours depending on connections. It also tells us where we can book the tickets through, you know, so quite interesting. And it's giving us specifics for that day. Now, what you can always do with AI is you can then go into more depth. So you could say, could you give me more of a breakdown for the getting to Saint-Jean? So you could say that as a result of that. And it just sort of narrows it down a bit more. And then it gives you the details. So day one, Sunday, April 20th, Saint-Jean to Roncesvalles. So a common one to start with. Tells you what the elevation gain is, crossing the Pyrenees. Tells you what happens at the albergue. Opens at 2 o'clock, priority to walkers, no reservations. And this is where you need to check it, you know. Is that true? Are there no reservations there? Because what it could have done is gone and found some information from a website that isn't necessarily, you know, up to date with information. So you do have to take all of this with a little bit of a pinch of salt and maybe double check stuff. But as I say, again, this is a starting point. It is not going to give you exactly what you need to do your Camino, but it gives you a good starting point. Next day we've gone to Zubiri, and there's a couple of options there for the albergues. Then on to Pamplona, again, a couple of different options. And it's telling us here, amenities, full city services, supermarkets, restaurants, bars, pharmacies, banks. Notes, arrival in the historic city of Pamplona, famous for the running of the bulls. So it's giving us a little bit of fun information as well, which is quite nice. Again, Pamplona to Puente la Reina. So we've got 24.2 kilometres. It's going up a bit and down a bit. Albergue Santiago Apostle, 94 beds, kitchen, washing facilities, and there's the phone number. Albergue Jacu, 110 beds, restaurant, washing machine, amenities. Features the famous Alto del Perdón with iconic pilgrim sculptures. So it's giving us the information that we need. Accommodation, here we go, we've got a Donativo one in Estella, 32 beds, run by an association supporting people with intellectual disabilities. So it's giving us some really quite nice information. So that could be your starting point. And all you would need to do if you wanted to expand on that is just type something else in the search field. You could say, actually change this to include hotels. Actually, it's come through in, how many days has it said that we're going to do it in? Let's have a look. It said 35 days. So you could just pop in here, please rework this to be done in 33 days. And let's see what happens. And hopefully it will just recalculate some things. 33 days. So it's given us a different itinerary here. And again, maintaining distances close to 25, not exceeding 28k where possible. So because we've narrowed the field down, it may be that we've had to go a little bit over that. And maybe still prioritising donativo of albergues when available. So again, it might have had to compromise on some of that as well. So it will have just reworked that through, and you can see it working here. So that one's 27.8 Los Arcos to Logroño. So that's pushing it a little bit, but it's still within the remit. So that's one example of how you can use it. I'm going to do another one now here, which is something else that can be really useful. Just need to, there we go. So the weather is something else that can be something that's quite fun. And you need to know, really. Everybody sort of says, oh, what's the weather going to be like? So here's a query I put together. So please create me a table of average temperatures in Celsius during the day and night and rainfall in millimetres by month in the main stopping points along the Camino Frances from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela. Return the results in a table. The rows will alternate between City A rainfall, City A day temperature, City A night temperature. The columns will be the months from January to December. So I've got quite specific on how I want it to actually display the information so that I can read it easily, basically. So let's hit this and see what it comes up with. And I haven't specified which points along the Camino Frances. I've just said the main stopping points. So it's going to go away and kind of think about that. So what it's doing is creating us a Camino Frances climate data document. And you can see here it started with Saint-Jean, onto Pamplona, Logroño, with the rainfall, day temperature, night temperature. One of the things about this is it's just so quick. You know, I could go and look up Leon average temperatures and things like that, but this is returning everything for me really quickly. All the way to Santiago de Compostela. Oh look, here comes the rain. And then it tells you what it's done basically. So it's saying this data covers the main stops and tells you which ones they are. See noteworthy observations. So it's just telling us a little bit about it. The wettest regions around Saint-Jean, Osobrero and Santiago de Compostela. Driest section around Logroño. Temperature extremes in Burgos and Osobrero during winter. Summer months have the lowest rainfall and highest temperatures. So it's telling us a bit about mountain passes, and it's not really put anything in for the higher passes. So let's just ask it to do that. So if we expand a little, please add in the 4 highest points along the route too. That can be where we see the extreme temperatures. So why not ask it to just include those? So we've got some of the main towns and things like that, but let's include some of the higher up places. We need to know what's going on at Osobrero and places like that. So it's now redoing these. I love watching it. It's fascinating. And as I say, with AI, the more information you can give it, the better. You know, you might want to say, return me this information for these points along the Frances and actually detail which ones you want. You might want to let it have a look at that and figure out what it does and then come back. So it's working through a few different places now, making edits, creating our document. Cruz de Ferro is going in there, 1,504 metres, so that's one of our highest points. We can underestimate sometimes what's happening at the higher altitudes, so it's really good to know this in advance. Osobrero. So he's updated it to include Alto de Perdón, Alto de Mostelares between Logroño and Burgos, Cruz de Ferro and Ocibrero. So Cruz de Ferro is the highest point, Ocibrero next highest, Alto de Mostelares, and then the Alto de Perdón. So basically lower temperatures, especially at night, and so higher rainfall as well, Cruz de Ferro. More extreme conditions overall. So fantastic. There you go. You've got some data. And what you can do with that is you can copy it, or you can download it as well. It downloads it as, you can save it as a PDF, or it downloads it as a markdown file. If you wanted to then translate it into something else, just Google how to translate it, how to import a markdown file. There are various applications that would help you do that. But you can just copy it and then paste it into an Excel document, something like that, which is what I've done with it before. You can then expand on this further. I have gone one stage further with this. So just to give you an example, again, that's quite tricky to read. You might know that you're going in April, May, whatever. So actually what we can do is we can say, can you now analyse the results for April and return them in a graph going from east to west with 3 lines, 1 for the rainfall and 2 for the temperatures. So it's going to do some quite in-depth analysis now. You'll see it starts doing all sorts of coding and things like that to analyse the data. We've only said 1 month, where you could say average of April and May, or you could say do it for April, then do it for May. So that's something that I've done as well. But what it does is goes off, and then it will come back and it'll display it in a format that's just easier to digest. So it's a graph. It'll go, okay, in April, along the route from east to west, this is what we can expect in terms of temperatures, hopefully. It may just go, I don't understand, I can't analyse this. Sometimes it doesn't work. And you do need to be aware that if you've just signed into something like Claude.ai or ChatGPT, things like that, if you're on the free plan, they will have limits. They will have limits of how many queries and things like that you can do in the day. And this is quite a complex query, so it might be too much for it to handle. It might just be able to return you 3 or 4 different areas. And it may be that what you need to do is do it one day and then go back and search more into it the next day so that you don't go over those usage limits. But this is what we've got now. So it's saying the rainfall pattern is a distinctive U shape, heaviest at both ends, driest in the middle. Temperature patterns, daytime temperatures 10 to 17, nighttime temperatures follow a similar pattern but range from 1 to 7. So it's given us some really, really, really good information. Cruz de Ferro, the highest point, has the lowest temperatures, and obviously the elevation impact. So it gives us some really nice information, and you can see here it's actually telling us at each point what the daytime, the nighttime temperatures are. So really helpful. In terms of getting some more information that you might need, especially these nighttime temperatures. You know, if you're thinking of just taking a sheet sleeping bag, that's a double check. That's a double check that all of the places I'm staying in have got blankets, because if they haven't, you know, we're getting down to one degree at Cruz de Ferro. I know you wouldn't be staying there, but you do stay very, very near there. So it's not far away, and 5 degrees, 2 degrees, you know, so highest nighttime temperatures are about 7. Now, obviously, you'd be indoors and things like that, but if you're in somewhere that doesn't have heating, that could be a real helper for you to deciding what gear you need to take. Also, the rainfall, you know, how much rain gear do I need? And we're looking at quite a bit through a month, you know, in April. If you did that from June for July, you'd get very, very different results. So it can be really, really handy using good old AI for these kind of things. So I hope that's been helpful. You know, I wasn't into AI at all, never used it, didn't even know how to access it. So if you just search Claude AI or ChatGPT, or one of the others, there are many out there, you know, and just it'll say, what do you want to know? And just try putting in one of these queries and see what happens. It's interesting to have a play with, but as I say, and I will say this again, do double check everything, because I put in asked for an itinerary for a Camino down south, which was which one was looking at the Via Serrana, I think, or the Via Augusta from Cadiz, I think it was, and it returned to me that there were lots of albergues, and actually there weren't. That was some data it had got from a site that said that there were young people albergues all along the route, and there weren't. So, like I say, you've got to double check the information, but it's a starting point. And for the weather, I think it's really quite useful. And feel free to play with other aspects. I'd love to hear how you get on with it, and if this was useful, and how you're going to use it. Maybe what time it saved you as well. And have fun playing. And buen camino.